We took it all. We brought them to our land. An endless night, ember hot and icy cold. The rage of the earth. We made this curse. Carved it in the blood on our backs. We did not see. We could not, but she did. And in the end...
What will I become?
Senua's Saga. Hellblade 2.
Play it now with Game Pass.
Drink it in, man. Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Cornbread! 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 Drink it in, man. Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Cornbread! Detroit Koolaid drinkers, what is going on, everybody? This is your Friday show. I'm your host, Eric Ogre. I'm recording a little bit early this week, Wednesday evening. Got to get this show done. Got some other things going on. Crazy busy week, as we all are, very busy. But I want to talk some Lions football with you, so hopefully you listen to the Wednesday show. A bit of a longer show, but I had a few bullet points, and next thing you know, I was on a few tangents. I did a few rants. I tried to give you guys some good football talk. And, I mean, I was just talking ball. I was just straight serving up Kool-Aid all day, every day. Drink it in, man. You know how I do here on the show. So, got a lot on this show as well. Just some different things I want to talk about. So, lots going on with the team. One thing I want to focus on is kind of those guys that are under the radar, or were under the radar and are kind of showing up this year. Maybe will they be a football player that will stay on this team or that could help this team in the future? We'll go through some of those. I also want to talk about some of the guys, got the trade deadline coming up. Maybe some guys that just see what their value is. Would we trade them? What would it be worth it for the team? Not keep them, that type of thing. We'll go through that. And then I want to tee up the Cincinnati game. A lot of people are saying, oh, this is winnable for the Detroit Lions, basically because they see Cincinnati on the schedule. Well, I think they had a good offense. We'll work through some of their stats, numbers, maybe see where they're really at. Some of that might surprise you and surprise me as we go through it, but kind of see where we're at with this football game coming up Sunday. Ford Field, just so much Kool-Aid to serve up today. Drink it in, man. I mean, and there'll be a lot of cornbread on this episode as well. Cornbread! Let's get into it right now. But real quick, before we talk football, I want to say this real quick. I want to say happy birthday to my mother. When this is dropping on October 15th, it's her birthday. I probably have the greatest mom in the history of mothers out there. I know a lot of you guys have great ones as well, but my goodness, just so nice. Probably the nicest lady I know, across the board. She's always caring about other people. She's been a pastor a majority of her life. She's now retired, being able to travel around and do some great things that she enjoys doing. So I just want to take a brief second to say happy birthday, Mom. I love you so much. And that kind of leads me into a very quick tangent. Maybe a birthday rant, if you will. Now, my mom, she's great about her birthday. She loves to go out to a nice dinner or to have some family around and have a nice time. My grandma, has been known to mark out multiple months for her birthday where people can celebrate, or she likes to have multiple parties, plenty of gifts, plenty of fun. She loves to have her birthday. So they're great about it. Myself, I like to really go under the radar. I'm not like, don't throw me any big parties. I don't need any gifts. You know what I mean? Just real low key. But I guess the rant is like, these people, there's certain people about their birthday where it's just like the most look at me moment, it's all about them. We get people at work, you guys have all seen them, where they or somebody at work decorates their office. Oh, it's my birthday, everybody look at me. You get people that just, I don't know. It's a really annoying thing to me. Like, I don't know if it's the gift aspect where people think like if you put your birthday out there, you get more gifts and more, people patting you on the back or talking about you. And maybe they enjoy that. That's totally not me. But if you enjoy your birthday, do it like my mom and my grandma and other people do, where like, yeah, you can throw it out there that, hey, it's your birthday and you can go do something fun if you want. But don't go way over the top and make it all like, hey, look at me. Hey, everybody, celebrate me. I mean, it's ridiculous, I think. So, again, I'm the far other end of that spectrum where I like to just ride low. Like I say, I don't need any more stuff. I don't need any big cakes. I don't need, having 50 of my best friends and family to celebrate my day of birth. That's not me at all. But like I say, if you're a birthday person, like, don't bring it to work. Don't tell 80 million people about it. Don't make a big hoopla on social media that it's your birthday. Congratulations, you were born on this day X amount of years ago. Great. Like, I hope you get a gift or two if that's what you're about. I hope you go out and have a nice evening if that's what you're about. Hope your kids, your family, whoever say happy birthday to you. But don't be ultra selfish about it. It seems like the most selfish day ever. Like, holidays are one thing, those are national and those are about good cause. Your birthday's about you. So when you start over celebrating, it's like, hey, look at me. Everyone should bow to me. Oh, it's my day. I mean, it just seems odd to me. But again, my mom doesn't do that. Others that I know don't do that. But I see it other places, at work, with the friends, it's just like, come on, it's enough of the craziness with the birthdays. But happy birthday, Mom. I love you. Hope you have a great day. All right, let's get into football now. That was just a side tangent rant. Now, we're focusing on under the radar type guys that I've been impressed with the Detroit Lions. For me, it kind of comes to, Charles Harris, a former first round pick. This guy was on my radar when that draft rolled around. I liked his pass rush. He's coming out of Missouri. He slid down the draft board. I want to say he went in the bottom third of the draft. And he went to Miami. And, for some reason, they just never knew how to use him. He just never made plays. Real big bust when it came to production. Bounced around a little bit, I think, to some different teams. Went to Atlanta and some different places. But, man, I think he's really playing good ball here in Detroit, and I recently heard a little interview with Shep, as they call him, his position type coach, kind of that linebacker, outside linebacker type coach, and man, he really loved him. He said, man, he was just used improperly. Like, he's been a dog since he got here. His mentality has been second to none, and it's showing up on the football field. Well, we got 4 games in a row with this guy with the sack. Number 53, you always see him sort of being out there making plays around the football. I do like what he brings. I mean, he's still a pretty young guy. I think that this is a guy that if they continue to make that role for him, he continues to make plays. And as Shep said, hey, you can't come out and make plays and then disappear and still think I'm going to give you the same amount of reps, same role. So they're definitely still pushing this guy. He hasn't made it by any means, and I like that mentality as well. But they said his motor never stops. You know what I mean? And that's what they need from that position, kind of that 3-4 outside linebacker. You need to be able to have that crazy motor, set the edge, and do some things. So, Charles Harris to me is a guy that's really coming on. Younger guy, first-round pedigree, good production in college. Maybe has found his fit here with the Detroit Lions, and I like him. I would definitely like to see them try to keep him around and grow a role and see him on the football field a lot, especially if he continues to produce the way he does. So the next guy I have here is JRM, Jalen Reeves-Maybin. I think they're calling him Germ, which I don't know if that's like a compliment or it's really the worst nickname ever. I don't know if it's like a shortening or sounding like JRM, sounds like Germ. I don't know what's going on there, but I believe that's what him and his teammates are calling him. But I don't care what you call him, JRM, Germ, Jalen Reeves-Maybin. I think Dan Campbell's even just called him Maybin before. He just shortens his whole last name. So don't care what you call him. This guy's all over the football field, number 44. Again, I hate to keep saying this because people are like, oh, Oker, you just love everybody, or you always say that you love this guy in the draft process. You go back and, there was a lot of buzz around Jalen Reeves-Maybin. Coming out of Tennessee, he could run sideline to sideline, tackle you. He was coming off injury, I believe, when he came into that draft. So his stock kind of fell, but didn't really fall. The Lions took him in the 4th round, I want to say. And, they just never played him. Like, I don't know why they took him and then just made him a special teams only type of guy. They could tell you, oh, he didn't show up in practice. He wasn't doing this. He wasn't doing that. He had some injuries. It feels like he has been hurt from time to time, but he also, when he's out there, he always seemed to do well. And finally, this new staff is saying, hey, we give you a little, you do well, we'll give you more. And they continue to give him more snaps, more opportunities on defense. And oh my goodness, like, he's making tackles, he's making hits, he's getting his hands on the football. I think a couple weeks ago, tipped a ball that got intercepted. Now this past week, the incredible strip late in the football game that should have won that game for the Lions. I just like what he brings. I feel like he had a lot of issues too, where they were telling him, get bigger, get smaller, get bigger, get small, get bigger, bigger, and it's just like, just let this guy play. If he's healthy, let him do what he does, which is, I know the draft, what was it? The podcast I listened to back in the day was Trevor Sikkema, the NFL draft on the Locked On Network. They liked this guy. They were like, man, we like Jalen Reese-Mapen. And, everybody hasn't liked him the last few years because he's been non-existent. But he's really showing up now. So this is a guy you can probably get at a really decent price. Bring him back here for multiple years. Again, still pretty young guy. I think he has a place here as well. Bobby Price. Bobby Price is a guy to me that I like just the way he looked in the uniform. I think a couple years ago he had the crazy long dreads, which is always a plus for me. That gives you like credit, just like as a baller, if you have these crazy dreads and you look yoked up. I just like, man, you could probably play, but he didn't find a fit. Again, the old regime just never got to play, never got opportunities. Now they moved him from safety to corner. I mean, you like some of the things you see. The thing I don't like is he'll go out and make a couple plays and you get Lions fans and people just like, oh, Bobby Price is coming along. He's our next number 2, number 3 corner. Like, you still got to be realistic of his spot on the team, what his overall draft physical abilities are. I think he's getting opportunity now and he's done some nice things, but I really don't know both what his ceiling is or where he fits on the team. It's a guy that I think has done some nice things, but you obviously need to see more. He's a guy, too, that Dan Campbell will often say, like, he's making mistakes out there for a young guy, and he might be one of the guys that I feel they pulled back on a little bit because of those mistakes or because of those slow ability to adapt to certain things. They were like, hey, we got to give Bobby Price less. But he's still out there. I'd still like to see more from him. We'll see where he comes the next little bit, especially with their injuries. He will be out there quite a bit, so keep an eye on Bobby Price. That's a TBD for me. Parker, AJ Parker, or whatever. They got him running out there at corner. I thought he really played well against Minnesota. I really do. I feel like even when he was getting balls caught on him, he was right there. Right where he needs to be. Playing sticky, getting the guy down after coverage. That's my big beef with AO. I mean, normally I play the drop that goes something like this. AO. Oh, baby. But like, all I say when I watch football games now is AO. Oh, no. Like, yeah, he's got a few interceptions, but most of the time he's 5 yards off or he's playing this slow off coverage and still getting burnt. So I don't know what's going on with AO, but AJ Parker to me is he's a nice breath of fresh air. Just, working hard out there, knows his assignments. Yeah, he got beat a couple times that cost us the game in Minnesota. You can't totally overlook that, but his name's AJ Parker, man. He's trying to figure it out. He's probably a guy that should be more of a special teams guy, more of a fifth corner on most teams at best. Now he's out there running against these top flight wide receivers. I mean, again, we'll see how he comes along. I like some things I see. Other things are disconcerting when he does get beat, but I'm telling you, most of the time when he gets beat, he's in pretty good phase, pretty much where you want him. I do like some things I see from AJ Parker as well. Dean Marlowe is a little bit more of a vet, but it's a vet I like, man. It seemed like when he got more snaps, we were getting more consistency than we get from Will Harris. Yeah, I know, everybody out there listening, my guy, Will Harris, a guy that I've been quoted on this show as saying, man, he's a future leader, future captain of this team. Yeah, that was about 3 years ago when they took him, and I thought he still had upside, and I've seen him for 2 years get roasted, toasted, and extra crispy, so sorry, Will Harris, I've soured on you now. I hear people saying, hey, Will Harris looked pretty good last game. Will Harris doing some nice things. Yeah, I don't see it enough. I don't see the consistency. I don't see him in phase. I don't see tackling. I don't see ball hawk playmaking, getting after the quarterback. But Dean Marlowe is a much more consistent vet to me, a no-nonsense guy. You listen to his interviews, he's very on point with what you got to do to win. He's been in this league. He played for good teams like with Buffalo and other places. So I think Marlowe is a guy I'd like to see more than number 25, Will Harris, out there, and see if he can just add some stability and allow Tracy Walker to freelance a little more, do a little bit more of what he seemed to do nice in that Minnesota game, which was make plays on the football, get after, make some big hits, I'd still like to see him either get after the quarterback more or create more turnovers in the air. You haven't seen him make many plays on the football when it's in the air. Again, that's the thing I keep harping on with number 21. So Dean Marlowe, I think, is that vet safety, is a guy that I'm intrigued by, as Dan Campbell would say. Now, here's a guy I got a lot of issues with, to be honest, but I put him on my list because you spent a 5th and a 7th round draft pick on him. Trinity Benson. I mean, Trinity Benson's a guy we've seen nothing from. Now, when I see him out there, I'm like, man, he looks pretty good in the uniform. Like, I'd like to see them figure out what routes he runs well, get him the football. Can he run after catch? Can he catch the deep ball? I don't know, because he hasn't done anything yet. And you gave up 2 draft assets for this guy, and he's done squadouche, nothing, 0. So I don't know. I don't know what we have in Trinity Benson. He has a unique name. He looks like he could do some things. He's wearing 17. It's kind of a horrible number, but it looks somewhat swaggy. I don't know. I mean, every week I feel like the deep Detroit Koolaid drinker in me is like, oh, man, this might be the week that Trinity Benson balls out.
Drink it in, man.
Oh, man. Why? Maybe out of nowhere, Trinity Benson makes a big catch or makes a few catches and actually gets in the end zone.
Cornbread!
And it never happens yet. So I don't know. I'm hoping this guy comes on. Pretty much he's on my list of under the radar guys to maybe keep around, because you basically got to keep him around, and he's really under the radar because he's done nothing. Did I mention that? But I hope he comes around. I hope he turns into a nice receiver. And when I say nice receiver, to me, you're going to see a lot of these guys get pushed down on the Detroit Lions. You're going to see guys that are getting lots of reps now or being looked at as contributors. Could I see like Cephas when he comes back next year or whatever be like a 3 or a 4 receiver? Yes. Could I see Trinity Benson be like a nice 4-5 type guy, on a team where they get a stud number 1 and they piece together a vet, as a number 2, and number 3 is St. Brown. Yeah, I could see that. So, I don't have the highest expectations, but I do need a contributor when I gave up a 5th and a 7th for this guy who's done nothing. But I root for Trinity Benson. I really do. I hope he's a good ball player. I just have seen nothing from this guy whatsoever. So we'll see. Kadero Hodge, to me, obviously made the big 2-point conversion. He has a little connection with Jared Goff. They say he's coming along. He seems to be getting more reps. You do see some catches in the middle of the football field, some actual production, unlike Trinity Benson, who's done nothing so far. Hodge has made a few plays. I do like some things I see. So he's a guy to keep an eye on. Again, is he a special teams guy? Is he a guy that can give you a little bit in the passing game? I don't think he has a huge ceiling. You have these people tell you, oh, watch him ball out. Even if he has a few big games here late with the Lions, I'm not rising up the charts like he's our number 3 receiver next year or something. No, his name's Cordero Hodge. He plays the bottom of the roster type wide receiver for a reason. Now, and I got a lot of receivers on this list when I'm looking at it, but you look at Khalif Raymond, or Leaf, as they call him. I mean, gosh, he's done some nice things. I'm not going to lie, the last few weeks. It's kind of like I wrote him off as like, who's Khalif Raymond? Why are they making Khalif Raymond number 2? Like he's some established receiver. Well, then he comes out and balls out for a few weeks, and I'm like, man, I kind of like Khalif Raymond's game. He's a hard worker. Makes plays, catches it when it's thrown to him, made some plays downfield, found the end zone a few times. Like, I like all that. But again, I like it all now on a Lions team that has nobody at that position, really. So I mean, I'm going to keep my eye on him. I kind of like him. He's going to be counted on if we're going to try to win ball games. Him and St. Brown are going to be the two guys that are going to have to make plays. But I really don't see an ultimate future for Khalif Raymond unless he really balls out this year and then he pushes some of those guys I just mentioned off the roster. Like, I could see Khalif Raymond pushing Trinity Benson off the roster if Trinity Benson continues to do nothing, absolutely nothing. Then I could see Raymond getting a spot. I could see Raymond knocking Cordell Hodge off the bottom of the wide receiver depth chart and staying around on this team because they seem to love him. Dan freaking Campbell. Everybody's like, man, Trinity Ben. I love Trinity Ben. Shalif is incredible. Okay, he's decent. He's a decent receiver, but this is the NFL, man. We can't have him being like our number one go-to guy right now. So that's what I got for kind of guys that are under the radar, but I might want to keep around. I said I was going to tighten up this show, but here we go. Going a bit long here, but having some fun on the mic. So let's get to these trade options, maybe values. I'll get through these pretty quick. The NFL trade deadline is Tuesday, November 2nd. That's about 2-3 weeks away from when you're hearing this. So, to me, the Lions are definitely sellers, but a lot of people online on Twitter, you guys can find me at Derek Okrie. That's spelled DerekOkrie. Man, they're just telling me, like, why are you going to give away any of our good players? Like, we're trying to build something. Like, we can't minus anything. And to some degree, I agree. It's like, yeah, I know that we're already struggling with talent. I know that our roster is poor in lots of spots. I know that we've had crazy amount of injuries. I understand that the record is not looking good at this point and probably won't look good or where I hoped it would be at the end of this year. But I'm here to tell you, where the Lions are at right now, to me, nobody's off limits. Depending on the offer. Now, am I taking junk offers and giving away to my time? No. But am I saying you're untradeable? No, not to anybody on this team. And basically nobody ever, depending on what you're offering me. So, I think the Lions could make a big-time aggressive move by getting rid of one of their quote-unquote bigger names or productive football players if the price is right. But what will probably happen is they'll probably stand pat pretty much. They might bring in a player or two on the lower side of the roster that's young that maybe can show some things and help their team next year. But I don't expect them to be sellers the way that I might consider being a seller, and I don't expect them to be big-time buyers. It's just going to kind of be low-level bringing in as well as, maybe listening to offers for certain guys and then probably doing what most guys in the NFL do, which is say, we didn't get any good offers for so-and-so, and so they end up keeping everybody around. But when I look at the value check, to me, Taylor Decker, here's the thing with Taylor Decker. They just paid him, but it was the other regime. You heard Dan Campbell waffle here recently about, I guess Taylor Decker's going back to left, but Penne's going to right, but we'll see how it goes. And Taylor Decker, is coming back to practice, but we'll see how long it takes him. He doesn't seem like ultra fired up about Taylor Decker as a football player. So my thing is, if the Colts or another team that really needs a left tackle or wants to upgrade their offensive line came screaming with a decent offer, I would definitely consider it. Now, you took Taylor Decker at the bottom of the first round in the 20s. So again, when you're looking at value, he's paid at a good amount, so that's got to come into factor. That kind of raises his value for me for letting him go to other teams. There's some dead cap involved, stuff like that hurts the Lions, so that's a negative. Again, I would be taking anything from like a 2 and a 3 to a first rounder if somebody was crazy enough to give that up. I'm taking a couple seconds probably if that's offered and it's decent, type of draft selections. And again, I'm not going to go on this big rant, but you people that out there listening who are always so crazy about like, oh, if a pick's in the 20s or 30s of the first round, it's no good. No, it's real good. A top pick in the second or mid-second round pick is absolute gold in the NFL. You got to understand this. Like, it doesn't matter necessarily where these top picks are. Anything in rounds 1 through 3 to me is a great asset to have. So you got to consider that when these guys are going. So Taylor Decker, I'm keeping around. I would love to see him, Frank, Penne, Jonah next year. But if somebody comes knocking with the right price, I'm going to at least listen to a trade from Taylor Decker. Now, TJ, Hawkinson is a guy, again, I mentioned on the Wednesday show. I got a lot of flack for just asking, like, what's his value? Where do you guys see him? How much you like him? What's his plan for the future here in Detroit? And the majority of people were just like, we absolutely love this guy. There's no way you can get rid of this player. I mean, no way, no how. He's a keeper. He's a great football player. He's a top 5 tight end. And most of that I agree with. Great player, top end tight end, only going to get better, blah, blah, blah. But if somebody comes knocking with a really nice return, I'm willing to consider it, because I think that you could turn a guy like that into multiple assets that can help you long term. And other people could pay TJ Hawkinson. And TJ Hawkinson go on to be a great tight end. I know that I can win in the NFL with a really great team and a mid to upper mid tight end. I don't need an all-world tight end. It's nice to have, but I don't need it. So that's where I'm at with Hawkinson. I think that, his value would be the same range as Decker. Any of those multiple picks, or if somebody's dangling a first, I don't really even care where it is. I'm definitely considering that, but I don't see that happening. Here's another crazy name to bring up, DeAndre Swift. Now, the only reason I would even put him in kind of trade discussions, because 1, how well he's playing right now. 2, he's a running back. So the way Jamal Williams is playing, it's sort of like you got 2 good guys there. 3, again, I love his game. I love everything about him, but I don't know that he's changing games or he's winning championships for us. So I don't think he would get a big trade market because of the position he plays, but he's an electric talent. So I'm much more for keeping DeAndre Swift. But because of his position, and because you're going to have to somewhat pay him here soon, and because I have Jamal Williams, and because I can go find a running back in the 5th, 6th round, because I got Jamar Jefferson, I would listen. I would listen to offers. I don't know that anybody's going to come calling necessarily, but I think DeAndre Swift's proving to be a top 12 type running back in the NFL based on what he can do in the pass and the run game. And you don't see many people with his juice, his shiftiness, and he can find the end zone, as I've said before too. And he's proven it once again this year. So interesting. I threw Jared Goff at the bottom of this list just because you look at his numbers, pretty good numbers. There's some quarterback needy teams out there. I don't see anybody clamoring for him because he hasn't, been great by any means. He hasn't, been electric in the passing game or anything that would just have people salivating. But you look at these teams like, that need a quarterback or are still trying to fiddle around. Like, he's somebody that I would always be open to dealing, even as much as Brad Holmes and company love him. Now, it's not going to fetch you anywhere near like some of these other prices I'm talking about, but, those mid-round picks, a 3-4, something like that is bonus because you kind of know this guy's not the long-term answer anyway. Now, the obvious answer is we're going to have him for the next 2 years. We're either going to piece a quarterback in that time or we're just going to go all Jared Goff the next 2 years, build up talent, and then probably move on from him and slot in a younger guy or a crazy trade. We could maybe get a vet in the middle of his career that's a ball player. That's an option as well. So, I don't see anybody calling for Jared Goff, but he is a quarterback, and quarterbacks are premium. You've seen like guys that have done nothing at the quarterback position go for first, second round picks, whatever it is. So there is crazy value there. And if anybody ever called, I would not, slam the phone down. I would listen. I would consider offers. I would even consider dealing him this year if somebody really needed a QB and thought he could help him because, we know where the Lions season is heading. I would roll Blau out there or whatever I had to do just to, acquire that asset. So it's all about the Lions. If they could use some of these premier players and acquire draft assets or free up cap space, that's only going to help them in the future as they continue to build a new, fun, exciting, young, inexpensive, hungry, nasty football team, which is what we all want here in Detroit. So, all right, everybody. So I went, 20, 25 minutes there. Let me go ahead and get our great sponsors in here. When we come back, we'll spend 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is, talking about the Cincinnati Bengals coming into town, get you ready for that game, give you some of their rankings, some things I see that we might be able to exploit, as well as some issues I have with this game, both for the Lions and the Bengals. So everybody, we'll do that right after the break. We'll be right back.
We took it all. We brought them to our land. An endless night, ember hot and icy cold. The rage of the earth. We made this curse. Carved it in the blood on our backs. We did not see. We could not, but she did. And in the end...
What will I become? Senua's Saga. Hellblade 2.
Play it now with Game Pass.
All right, everybody. This goes out to my fantasy football fans out there. Now, you probably heard about Reality Sports Online, the most powerful fantasy sports platform where owners can build and manage their fantasy team like a real NFL general manager. But the question is, have you tried it? I mean, we're talking free agency, multi-year contracts, rookie drafts, multi-team trades. You can put franchise tags on guys. It's as close as you're going to get to being an NFL GM. But do you think it sounds complicated? It's not. I'm here to tell you it's the best thing about Reality Sports Online is it's just more fun than your normal fantasy league, but it doesn't take barely any more time. After all this, are you still not sure? I mean, come on now. You can test your general manager skills by going over to Reality Sports Online, call it RSO. Please go check out realitysportsonline.com right now. All right, everybody, we're back from the commercial break. Thanks so much for listening to our sponsors. Really helps out the show. Please give me a follow on Twitter at Derek Oakery, or hit that subscribe button here on the show. Share it with a friend. We come to you Wednesdays and Fridays, serving up that Detroit Koolaid right here on the Detroit Koolaid Cast. And I don't think I hit on this, but before we get into the Cincy game, I got to talk about this with Chops when he comes back, because me and him, we didn't really say it when he had him on, and it'll be a few weeks till he comes back, but me and him had just the ultimate blast at the Baltimore tailgate. We were serving up Detroit Kool-Aid, literally. We were handing it out to people, handing out Kool-Aid packets. We were yelling at Baltimore fans, telling them that, it's not about purple drink, it's about Detroit Kool-Aid. I mean, we had just an absolute blast. People were laughing. People were taking pictures at our tailgate, asking about that Detroit Kool-Aid, subscribing to the pod. So hopefully we can do that, more of that in the future, is get out and have a bunch of fun with the Detroit Kool-Aid motto and the show and everything that's going on. But again, it continues to grow. Your guys' support is crazy. I always get these DMs, these tweets where it's just like, love the show, keep up, this is so funny, this is, you had a good take on this, a lot of people, I didn't agree with you here, all that kind of stuff is just really fun. So I just appreciate all the listeners, everybody that makes this show go week in, week out. Thank you so much. I try to say that most weeks because I do really appreciate, and just anybody that's ever hit the play button or the subscribe button here on the show means a lot to me and the show in general. So thank you so much. Let's dive into this Cincy game right now. So to me, looking at this one, I put a tweet out here just the other day saying, man, a lot of people have this game as like a W for the Lions because it's Cincy and because they haven't been very good and because most people want to just go off the old, or they don't want to look at what's going on right now. And I see it a lot differently, but when you look at it from a grand scheme, it's only a 3-point spread. I mean, they have an over-under at 47.5, so they assume both teams are going to kind of be in that mid-20s, it feels like. Now, I would favor the Bengals in this game, even though it's a home game for the Lions, just because of, the quarterback they have, the offensive weapons, the injuries on the Lions. But the Lions have been playing well, you know what I mean? The last few games, they've hung in there against teams that were favored by 10 or by 8 or by 12. And so this is more of a pick-em game, even on the Vegas line. And to me, the biggest fear factor is Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And my guy, Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon was going to have an ankle injury. He seems to be fine. He's going to be out there rolling against the Lions as well. So when you dive into some of Cincinnati's numbers, I mean, I was kind of surprised by them, to be honest. You look at their offense, like points per game, middle of the league, the 18th, ranked yards per game. They're all the way down at 25th points. They're that's points per play. Let's see what else we got here. I mean, you go down to their rushing stats. They're a pretty good rushing team. 11th, it looks like, in the league right now. Not a very good yards per rush, though, at 3.9. That's classic Joe Mixon. It's like you always expect him to be this like electric back, and his yards per carry always in the threes. Yet he will break off some big plays, or he'll have those big games of 100 and a touchdown or two. So you got to be on the lookout for that. And you'd think their passing game is, top of the line. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, even though he's been injured. You got Boyd on there on the outside. Even their tight end had some success in that primetime game here recently, but their passing statistics right now, it looks like they're 22nd in the league. In pass, play type percentage. And that's their amount of passes are 22nd. So they're actually being more, split heavy. Now, Joe Burrow, 71% passer, completion type wise. That's third in the league. That's real good. They also chuck it down the field. 8.1 per pass. That's big time. What's Jared Goff like in the 4s, 5 somewhere? So he's 3-4 yards lower per pass play, and that's big. That's a very big type number when you look at that. Let's see what else we got here in regards to some of their numbers. Because like I said, I was going through these thinking, man, they're gonna be big time in all these numbers, and to me it just wasn't there. Now when you look at some of their defensive numbers, same type of thing. The Cincinnati defense, points per game, they're giving up 20 points per game, so that's 7th in the league. That's good. Their rushing D, looks solid overall. Looks like teams are trying to pass against them, doing decently well, almost a 68-70% pass completion. They're also throwing for that 6.5 plus yards per, so they're getting some plays down there as well. And you throw all these numbers in and you're just kind of like, okay, I'm looking at, penalties per play. It looks like they're 4th ranked. So penalties per game, 5, so it's a team, again, they always seem kind of like an undisciplined, unsuccessful team, similar to somewhat how the Lions are most times. But when I looked at it just from a big picture view, I was like, I don't know how the Lions are going to guard 2 or 3 of those receivers. Now, if they have T. Higgins as well, I haven't looked up his injury status, but that's going to be trouble. That really is, because as much as I pumped up some of our backup corners, I think Joe Burrow can just throw it all around the yard, especially indoors at Ford Field. Let's see if I can pull up a little something on T. Higgins right now and see where he's at, because he's a hell of a player. He's just been out for quite a bit, and I have not as much fantasy football as I play, and billion leagues I'm in. I do not have T. Higgins in one league across the board. He's just not a guy that ever fell to me, but guy's a beast, man. 6'4", 215, big old wingspan, go get the football. I don't know. I'm trying to see any updates on his injury right now. Nothing's jumping out to me, but I'll keep looking while we're talking here. So, to me, again, I keep saying to me. What am I doing? To me? What is that? Some weird tagline I got today. But in general terms, I think the Lions are going to have to find a way to stop the pass. They're going to have to... They're going to have to hold Joe Mixon down, which, like I said, has been done plenty of times in the past where you thought the guy was going to blow up, or he's this dynamic running back. He's had plenty of bad games. You can trust me on that because I have him in plenty of fantasy leagues. So still not getting anything on T. Higgins here. So sorry about that. I should have had some big time update, but it looks like shoulder injury, out for weeks 4 or 5. I don't see anything saying he's right around the corner or anything. So, we will see kind of what ends up happening. My hope is he's out. I'm always rooting for these players to be out against the Detroit Lions. But who's going to cover Jamar Chase? I would assume they're going to put AO around him, but AO is not very good when it comes to guys that are either route runners, or Jamar Chase is a physical beast. You don't come up and... Maybe that might work for AO, because AO is playing all this soft coverage, just playing zones, sort of letting you catch it and tackle him. So maybe that would help, but he's going to be a problem. Mixon's going to be a problem. Now you look at their defense. There's not many big names over there. I know they got some young type linebackers. Jesse Bates or whatever. I think he's been out. He's one of their good safeties. We'll see if he's out there playing. Can't tell you much about their corners. You got guys on the D-line that are just ho-hum for the most part. I think they invested in the kid Hendrickson from the Saints. I mean, decent player. He's got some good rushes this year. I think his stats are pretty good. So that's a player to look out for. But their defense doesn't scare me. It's just like, I don't know if the Lions are going to be able to hold down that offense, or if Joe Burrow is going to go for like 350 and like 3 touchdowns, 2 to Jamar Chase, 1 to Mixon underneath, or, just air it out all day. I don't know how they're going to approach the Lions, but I think from the Lions' perspective on how we're going to drink that Detroit Koolaid and get this W, hold on. Let me fill up everybody's glass before I get into this.
Drink it in, man.
Like, when we're looking at the Kool-Aid take when it comes to the Lions, it's sort of like, gosh, you're just waiting for Jared Goff to put 4 quarters together. You're waiting for him to have a decent passing game, both underneath and a few explosives, to be able to put points on the board. He had that seam route, against Chicago. It was nice to see kind of a 20, 30-yard touchdown to Leaf. You'd like to see more of that. But he's been pretty consistent in his pressers, saying he's going to throw it to who's open, and he's going to, even Dan Campbell was like, just hit who's open. Sometimes you got Hawkinson on the stick, just hit him. You've got a guy on your first look, throw it. Rather than trying to make a bigger play. So maybe he'll just do that all day. But I would love, again, for Hawkinson, Swift, St. Brown, Goff to really have the best game of their season against a Cincinnati-type defense, which, again, I think can be had for some points and some big plays. And then they're just going to have a similar defensive effort that they had against Minnesota. I mean, you have to go out there. You have to get off the field on 3rd down, which they did really late in that game. You have to create a few turnovers, which they did in the Minnesota game. You have to stiffen up sometimes on those short yardage plays, which I feel like they did a couple times, or a couple times guys made catches and they made some really nice hits, were right on them. Those are the type of things you got to just continue to build on. So if this defense can hold up and be decent, and the offense can be more explosive, a hell of a lot more explosive than they were in Minnesota, because you go back and watch that game. I mean, they're doing nothing for 3+ quarters, and then they were able to cash in at the end, and it almost looked glorious for them. But if you do anything before, if Jared Goff doesn't turn the football over twice in field goal range, again, it's another game we probably win, because it's 6 more points I think he took off the board with those turnovers. You just crumple and fall down, or keep the ball in your hands. We kick a field goal. Seibert's been really solid in my opinion. It's a different ball game. So again, my biggest worry in this game is that Cincy just goes crazy and puts up like 30, 40 points. And this is one of those like 42 to 24, because we end up scoring some late points or something football game. Best case scenario is that, okay, Vegas has it in the 20s, so let's go ahead and go 28-24 Lions, or 31-28 Lions. That would be incredible. I just don't see this being a low-scoring game where both teams are clunky all day, and then they end up, in one of those low teens, mid-teens type football games. I don't see it being that at all. I see it being a really fun game to watch, to be honest, because I feel like Cincy's going to throw it all over the yard and be able to run on the Lions more than we'd hope. And I think the Lions will be able to do some things too. So we'd really like to see Goff and company get it together. TJ Hawkinson, maybe put up 100 yards and a tug. That's my new favorite line, by the way. I know they're using it on Good Morning Football, but I seriously, when I'm watching games or my fantasy teams, I'm always like, oh, that's 120 and a tug for a touchdown. I just think it's so funny. It makes no sense, but it's just fun to say, man. So let's get St. Brown 50 and a tug. Get him in the end zone. That'd be nice. And, like I say, DeAndre Swift, 100-yard game. You know what I mean? He hasn't been running it much, but, DeAndre Swift's got the capability to get you 100 on the ground and in the air if you really feature him, But Jamal Williams is doing nice as well. So, I don't know. It's going to be a fun one to watch, I think. If I got to throw my prediction out here on a Friday show, I know I've been doing a lot of W's for the Lions. I know the Lions have been doing a lot of L's, unfortunately. A lot of people have this as a W for the Lions. This is the Koolaid Cast. Oh, I'm going to tell you, you guys are going to like it, but I can't go W every week for the Lions. But I'll tell you this. Let's say that it's going to be a fun game to watch, a lot of points on the board. I'm going to go 34-28 Cincy in this game. Obviously, I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Lions come out, win this game. I hope they look good on both sides of the football. Hope they play solid. Hope some of your young cats come along. Again, Levi Owens-Enrique has been playing better. Lee McNeil's been playing better. Derek Barnes in the middle of the defense have been doing some things. So if those guys can keep coming along and keep playing well, making plays, I can deal with some of the shortcomings on the scoreboard and whatnot. So I see this as being a loss for the Lions. I really hope that offense gets going, though, because it has been kind of hard to watch. No points in the first half in multiple games. Basically no points other than field goals. So really late in that Minnesota game, didn't score enough to beat Chicago, didn't score enough in the Green Bay game. A lot of things fall on this offense, and on number 16 turning it over a little too much. So clean all that up, have a fun football game, see where you come out in the end. So that's what I got, everybody, for Cincy and Detroit. Let's hope our Lions pull it out. Let's hope they get their first victory for Dan freaking Campbell, because I think I speak for Dan Campbell, myself, Lions fans, One Pride, the Detroit Koolaid drinkers. We are sick of losing. We're tired of it. We've had enough of that you-know-what, right, Dan Campbell?
You've had enough of that.
Exactly. So let's go get a W over Cincy, and let's get this monkey off our back. Let's do some things. So that's all I got this week. Everybody, thank you so much for listening to the Detroit Koolaid Cast. Drink it in, everybody, and I'll catch you next week right here on the show. Take care, everybody. I'm out.
Pack the bag, start the plane. This game is over. It is over. What a comeback by the Lions. Drink it in, man.